Welcome to Vinnie Politan Investigates. I'm Julia Janae, filling in for Vinnie. The focus tonight is our investigation into the disappearance of a young mother in Manassas Park, Virginia. Her name is Mamta Bhatt, and this is her story. Mamta Bhatt came to the United States from her native country of Nepal in 2021. She lived in Manassas Park, Virginia, in a nice home on a nice cul-de-sac. The perfect place to start raising a family with her husband, Naresh Bhatt. Mamta worked as a pediatric nurse at Prince William Medical Center. In August of 2023, Mamta gave birth to a baby girl, the couple's first child. Early in 2024, there were some marital issues for the couple, and Mamta moved out of the house for a short while before returning back home. On August 2nd, when Mamta did not report to work and no one could contact her, co-workers asked for a welfare check to be done. Police went to the house and spoke with her husband, Naresh. Then, 3 days later, he finally reported her missing. Then, weeks later, investigators raid the house and arrest Naresh for concealment of a body after finding lots of evidence in the house, including blood. But Mamta still hasn't been found, and no other charges have been filed against Naresh. So many questions for the loved ones of Mamta. Naresh Bhatt, her husband, was charged with one felony count of concealing a dead body. And this was after law enforcement found evidence of blood in the home that he shared with his wife. Now, at a bond hearing for Naresh, the defense argued that he should be granted bond because police only had blood and no body. They further argued that the amount of blood found in the home at the time amounted to that of a, quote, nosebleed. When it was the Commonwealth's turn, prosecutors argued against Naresh receiving bond, and they took the time to elaborate on the evidence that they have against him. The Commonwealth's presentation convinced the judge that Mamta's husband could be a flight risk and a possible threat to the community, and ruled that Naresh would remain in custody without bond. So that's where things stand. And the search continues for Mamta's body. Now, there were no cameras permitted inside of that hearing, but here at Court TV, we were able to gather some of what the prosecution presented to the court. And that brings us to our first question of the night. What exactly is the evidence against Naresh Bhatt? And we have some guests who are going to help us break this all down. Joining us, Mamta Kafle Bhatt's former co-worker, Holly Worth, and board-certified forensic pathologist, Dr. Priya Banerjee. Thank you both so much for being here with us. And Holly, you've been seated in these hearings, advocating for your friend. Tell us what the prosecution has outlined as their evidence against Naresh at this point.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I have been in court for both the hearing that was on Friday, and then again, there was a bond hearing on Monday. The Commonwealth introduced a significant amount of evidence that really pointed to something rather heinous happening in the Bhatt residence. The Commonwealth attorney described blood in the house using the terms pooling of blood, as well as dragging her body, which you would have seen written in the indictment. The Commonwealth attorney spoke about the extensive use of the Blue Star technology and said things like the whole bathtub lit up using the Blue Star technology. Lots of evidence of Mr. Bhatt being caught, seen on CCTV at Walmart buying knives. They cited that they saw him on CCTV buying 3 knives. They have not recovered all 3 of those knives, as well as evidence of him buying cleaning products. And what came into evidence on Monday, more than just the cleaning products, because we can all buy cleaning products, was the fact that those cleaning products had been used almost to where the bottles were empty. They cited the evidence that the carpet looked like had been cleaned, and when they served the search warrant, almost the entire bottle of carpet cleaner was found empty right at the spot of one of those large blood pooling stains. There's a lot of evidence that we can unpack, and I'm happy to answer any questions about specific things that were testified in both of those hearings.
Dr. Priya Banerjee, I want you to weigh in because you're a forensic pathologist. We're thinking ahead, and prosecutors we know are thinking ahead, though we hope that Mamta is found alive. But if this becomes a situation where they do have an autopsy, this information that you heard Holly describe from the prosecution's evidence outlined for the courtroom, how much of that is taken into consideration if an autopsy is being done? And what is it saying to you about potential cause of death?
Right. So you have to be, immediately her death, if her body is found, is treated as a homicide. Okay. And I think this far out, we have to worry about the condition of a body. Is she's not in the home. They didn't see her. So now where is the body? Has it been exposed to elements outside? It's still the summer down there, although it's cooling down. Insect activity. I don't know what condition, if her body's whole or been made smaller for disposal purposes. And I just want to come back to the sort of hearing. All of this is still preliminary in the sense Blue Star, which, I used to go to multiple crime scenes anytime there's a suspicious death. And Blue Star is very useful, but it's still presumptive. So I think while the husband is in jail, there needs to be a lot more laboratory forensic work done while we await her body to prove that samples taken from the suspicious areas are her blood. Obviously, if they're her blood, we're in a whole different level of suspicion. Basically, I think at that point we're looking for a dead body. That further pushes it into a homicide. But at this point, I do want to be cautious because cleaners can set off Blue Star quite brightly, and blood would stain differently. Now, I'm sure the crime scene investigators, detectives are quite experienced, and they didn't qualify it. And a whole tub means it could have been smeared with cleaner on top of blood. But you just have to be very careful with collecting samples. And I'm hoping my forensic laboratory colleagues can expedite DNA testing to really then hold him longer, because that's really what you need. You need to, further evidence to up the ante, hold him in jail, get him to talk, and hopefully lead us to the body if that's unfortunately where we're going.
Dr. Banerjee, a quick follow-up, because we have the defense saying that the amount of blood was just the size of a nosebleed compared to the prosecution saying pools of blood, bathtubs of blood. Do you think there will be a way forensically for there to be a determination of that?
Absolutely. So, anybody familiar with blood spatter, I'm not certified, but I do interpretation at scenes, sort of to work softly. Again, what are we working with? A nosebleed is going to be sort of high spray droplets. It's going to be, small droplets. It's not going to be a big pool collection of blood. Again, I do want to caution that a big glug of cleaner can simulate, Blue Star lighting up. But if they're interpreting it as blood, then that's totally inconsistent with a cough or a nosebleed. That's not going to yield. You don't die from a nosebleed. It doesn't pool. It sort of sprays very fine mist, like when you sneeze. So let's use common sense being common. That's inconsistent with that pattern.
Yeah, still very early in this investigation. I do want to highlight another bad fact that was presented against Naresh Bhatt. Prosecutors explained that as early as April of 2024, he had used his work laptop to make some peculiar internet searches. Let's take a look. One of those being, how long does it take to get married after a spouse dies? And what happens to died spouse? Holly, what was your reaction when you saw those details?
I think that was probably the time in the courtroom where everybody took a collective pause. The Commonwealth attorney, again, brought that into evidence, sharing actually those tips had come from the Secret Service, that Mr. Bhatt had performed those searches on his work laptop, knowing that he does have secure clearance. It was quite shocking to read those two lines that came out. I'm not an attorney, and I agree with the other guests, right? This is preliminary in the investigation, but I guess as an amateur sleuth, to me, that might demonstrate some degree of premeditation. I will be interested to see when the Manassas Park Police can release what's on his home laptop, because I'm under the assumption that if he's doing this at work under security clearance, there may be other concerning searches on his home laptop. So agree, we're in the early stages of evidence, but what has been shared into the record at this point is certainly concerning for Mamta. The Commonwealth made the statement that from their estimation, what they saw on the scene at the home showed evidence of wounding that likely Mamta was unable to survive. And that is similarly very, very hard to hear.
So difficult to hear. This is a mother of a very young child, a child that her family and friends say there's no way that she would have missed her child's first birthday. And Holly, let me also ask you, we mentioned that you worked with Mamta, but tell me a little bit more about what she was like at work, what kind of job she was doing.
Yeah, Mamta and I are both nurses, and I had the pleasure of meeting Mamta very early into her nursing practice in the United States. So as you can imagine, she came in a little bit timid, a little bit shy. As you can see on the screen, there's an army of nurses that are standing together to fight for her. But what I can share with you in my time working with Mamta is her sweet and gentle spirit. Mamta had a very kind heart, kind smile, enjoyed learning, and really found a lot of pride in the way that she made connections with her patients and made them feel better throughout her shift. Being a nurse and coming to the U.S. and getting her nursing license was something that Mamta was very proud of, and rightfully so. She shared with me she'd like to continue her education, maybe go on to be a nurse practitioner. So, from my recollection, Mamta had a lot to be proud of, not only as a wife and a mother, but also as a registered nurse.
And Dr. Priya, what are you looking for next? What do you expect to come out in this case?
Well, I think, there's more investigation, not only in the circumstances. I'm hoping if she is deceased, we can give, closure. The autopsy is going to be really, really important. And I think it seemed like at least one knife was still missing, so maybe the candidate knife can also be detected. I think that's where I'm looking at it from, an autopsy perspective. I wanted to add something sort of socially, which, I'm also of South Asian descent, and a baby's first birthday is like a huge accomplishment, because in these, Nepal, India, there's always a lot of potential for complications, a baby passing away. It's a very hallmark birthday. So knowing her as a young mom, also she wouldn't miss her child's birthday. It's just too much of a big milestone. So that in itself, when you put the sort of circumstantial case together, really doesn't bode well. I'm just hoping that in the ongoing investigation, again, we can dig further, uncover more, and then really do the autopsy when she's found, if and when she's found.
There is more to come. We know those investigators are digging. Dr. Priya Banerjee, thank you so much for your time. Holly Worth is going to stay with us because we're going to keep talking about this case. Coming up next, how will Mamta be found?
What makes really you to scratch your head is previously everybody knew where Mamta was, including Naresh, in-laws, mother, brother, everybody. This time, nobody knows.
Drew me to Court TV was this opportunity to combine the two things that I love. When I was in college, I studied television and radio, and then, of course, went to law school. And when I found out that Court TV was going to give me the opportunity to express myself and to share my love of the law, I was sold immediately.
The most important issue, innocence or guilt.
Started as a production assistant, then AP, and then went up the ranks, and really haven't looked back since.
I came to know even from the husband that she used to call Uber for her work. She did not have a car. And in one question, I asked him, you said that you went to search for her and then just looked from outside in a friend's house between August 1st and the 5th. August 1st, he said, he went there, he looked from outside and then said that Mamta is not there, and then he came back. I said, well, how do you know that she was not there? Because she doesn't drive a car. That means her car was not there in a driveway or parked outside. So how do you know that?
That was Nepalese journalist Sachi Mainali describing one of the ways that Naresh Bhatt told her that he looked for his wife after she was last seen. And while we don't know if Naresh participated much in the search for his missing wife, we do know that friends, community members, and law enforcement have been looking for Mamta around the clock. But no one has been able to locate the 28-year-old mother. The Bhatt's home, where prosecutors say evidence of blood was found, is located in a cul-de-sac in a Manassas Park, Virginia community. The neighborhood is surrounded by dense wooded areas and a few small bodies of water here and there. And if you look further out, you can see the home's relation to the Potomac River and surrounding cities. So no searchers at this point have been able to find Mamta, but they are looking. But our next question is, where will Mamta be found? And that's what we're going to ask our guests who are with us. Still with us is Mamta Kafle Bhatt's former co-worker, Holly Worth, who has been a friend and advocate inside of the courtroom for her. Also, private investigator Jason Jensen is joining us to lend us his experience as a criminologist. Let me start with you, Holly. This is a situation where we don't know what to expect from this search, but help us understand where the search is going on. And is it community members who are still searching? Is the public involved? How widespread is this search there in your area?
Sure. There were community-based searches in a park that was very close into that neighborhood. The name of Mamta's neighborhood is Bloom's Crossing, and there is a park there named Bloom's Park that a wonderful community member, friend of Mamta, had arranged. So that was really grassroots searching. We've been in contact with Chief Lugo of the Manassas Park Police Department, and he has really asked the public, if possible, to pause, kind of ground root searches. And he's assured us when and if the time that they have an idea where Mamta is, they certainly will mobilize the community. But to keep the community safe, as you showed, we live in beautiful Northern Virginia. It is heavily wooded, very dense forested areas. They would like to use the forensics first and then have the community come help as searchers in the future. And I think in full transparency, when we get a look at the evidence that the Commonwealth has brought in, Mr. Bhatt's phone was seen in surrounding counties. We live in Prince William County. Loudoun County, it's not a close county. It's, I would say, probably 30 miles from us. So there's a good possibility that, unfortunately, searches in the neighborhood are not going to yield what we need, and we need to wait for the forensics or the digital footprint to come in.
And as we take a look at those counties and just how far apart they are, Holly, I do want to ask you, Jason, where do police look in a situation like this? Where do they start? What type of processes are they using to try and figure out where this mother is?
Well, thanks, Julia. The primary thing that they're going to rely upon is the GPS data from either their devices, like their phones, maybe laptops or tablets. They're going to look at GPS of the Tesla that was recently sold. That seemed to be a pretty big clue. It's like, if there's nothing going on, why would you sell your car? Why would you liquidate everything? Have your house set for sale and things of that nature. So, see, things seem to be well in order, that the police are headed down the right path. So clearly the forensics is going to be the first and most important thing. Once they figure that out, then they can decide where to, set the search teams.
Yeah, Jason, a follow-up. We know that there was more than one warrant that they brought to the house of the Bhatts, that they went back a second time. What does that usually indicate when you have police returning a second time to the house?
What that usually indicates is that the first search was inconclusive to collect everything that would be relevant. So like while they were there, they may have noticed, like let's say a home computer that was not listed on the previous search warrant. So they're going to expand their search, dot their I's, cross their T's, get a new warrant to cover those other devices or other rooms or storage lockers or the attic or whatever they may had not included in the first search. They're playing by the book here and making sure that there is no loopholes for a defense team to circle back and get evidence excluded.
All right, we do have, Holly, I do want to ask you one quick question. We are going to have to go to break soon, but can you tell us about Naresh's occupation, what he did for a living, and has any of what he does for a living, has it crossed your mind as to what that might indicate about where, if prosecutors are correct, he would have concealed a body?
Yeah, I think we need to acknowledge the fact that Naresh Bhatt is educated, right? He served in the Army and I believe through the Army Reserves. He was an IT consultant with General Dynamics. So he does have IT experience as well as military experience. So I think we need to know that we're dealing with a smart man. Again, the Commonwealth has brought in evidence that leads to believe that whatever happened in that house had an unfortunate outcome. But when looking at Mr. Bhatt's timeline, he was trying to get as much time as possible to perhaps, conceal the body and alter the scene to make sure that he didn't look like a suspect. And, that to me is evidence of someone who is calculating, who is smart. I've previously described him as crafty, and I think that's what we are seeing.
And more will be ahead in this case as investigators search for her body. Holly Worth and Jason Jensen, thanks so much for being on with us today. I'm Julia Janae, filling in for Vinnie Politan here at Vinnie Politan Investigates. We will keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. Welcome to Vinnie Politan Investigates. I'm Julia Janae, filling in for Vinnie. The focus of our investigation is the disappearance of a young mother in a Manassas Park, Virginia area. Her name is Mamta Bhatt, and this is her story. 28-year-old Mamta Bhatt was a pediatric nurse and new mother. She came to the United States from her native country of Nepal and lived in Manassas Park, Virginia, with her husband Naresh. But the couple had problems. When she didn't show up for work on August 27th, her co-workers were getting worried. A few days went by and police performed a welfare check at her house, but her husband declined to report her as a missing person. A few days later, Mamta's husband Naresh did officially report her missing, and the search began and has not stopped, even after law enforcement found evidence of blood in Bhatt's home, and her husband Naresh was arrested for concealment of a body. Mamta Bhatt's husband, Naresh Bhatt, has been charged with one felony count of concealing a dead body after investigators found evidence of blood in their home. But his wife, Mamta, is still missing, and Naresh has spoken to investigators and the media several times since her disappearance. Here's what he told WUSA 9 in an interview that he says he last saw Mamta Wednesday, July 31st, 2024 in the evening, and that they ate together. He called it a normal day, like any other regular day. He said that they took care of their baby just like normal. And the reporter asked him if Mamta had mentioned anything about leaving, and he said, quote, no. So tonight, what we're asking is the story, and he told several versions of a story to investigators. Does this story make sense? And we're bringing in our guests who are joining us, Mamta Kafle Bhatt's former co-worker Holly Worth, and nationally known psychotherapist and host of the Talking Live and Bite Size podcast, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, is with us as well. So good to have you both. Holly, let's talk about these comments from Naresh. He is telling this reporter he knows nothing, that he only saw her on that day in July. Can you talk about some of the discrepancies in when he last saw his wife?
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to highlight that there are a lot of discrepancies in Mr. Bhatt's timeline. He said, having been in the courtroom for the last 2 hearings, each time we gather together, the Commonwealth presents more evidence that points to discrepancies. As you said, Mr. Bhatt reported to the detective from the Manassas Park Police Department that he saw Ms. Bhatt on 7/31. He went upstairs, he went to bed with the baby, he heard her kind of clunking around in the kitchen, and that was the last he saw. So we made the inaccurate assumption that she would have Ubered to work. As you heard previously, she did not have her own car. So we were thinking she left for work on the 2nd, got into an Uber, and maybe something happened in the Uber. Sitting in the courtroom on Monday, the Commonwealth actually reported that Mamta's phone went silent on the 30th. So that's even before Mr. Bhatt said he last saw her alive, which was July 31st. So making the assumption that perhaps whatever happened in the Bhatt home actually happened on the 30th as opposed to the 31st. And as you spoke, Mr. Bhatt was offered the opportunity to file a missing persons report and declined to do so, knowing now that was 3 to 4 days after probably what happened in that house happened.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, what does that say to you when a husband whose wife is missing is willing to speak to investigators, speak to the media? Does that indicate anything to you in this case?
Well, I don't think it necessarily means that he's innocent necessarily or guilty, although from what I'm hearing, I'm not hearing any concern, not even any feigned concern, which is disturbing. And, a lot of people feel like if they've committed allegedly a crime that they can convince others, including investigators or the media, of their innocence. So, we've seen many killers, very homicidal husbands, talk to the media and thinking they were doing a good job of doing a cover-up when in fact that wasn't the case.
Let's look at some more of what investigators, prosecutors, and the community, friends and family like Holly have been just paying attention to as far as what has come from Naresh Bhatt. Now, prosecutors say as early as April of 2024, he used his work laptop to make some peculiar internet searches like this one. How long does it take to get married after a spouse dies? And what happens to debt if a spouse dies? Holly, do we know if he had any plans or any relationships that he had outside of his marriage with Mamta?
There's a sufficient amount of rumors all over the internet. I certainly can't comment on anything that's come out, evidentiary. But there's a lot of people that have a lot of opinions on social media. The fact of the matter that we do know, the Commonwealth did introduce into evidence that Manassas Park Police were called to the Bhatt home in February of 2024 for what they described as disorderly conduct. They reported Ms. Bhatt said that Mr. Bhatt had destroyed her cell phone and wouldn't give her her passport or green card. So there was clearly a pattern of some friction going on as early as February.
And Dr. Robbie, weigh in on that friction, but not only that, but these searches that he was making in April, and it's the beginning of August that we are now learning about the missing persons report of Mamta Bhatt.
Well, it all adds up to a very disturbing picture. We do know that abusive relationships can become homicidal. It does sound like this poor woman was abused and was in a very unhealthy relationship where she had no power, or the goal was to take away her power. And her husband, at the very least, liked the idea of her being dead and almost was planning for it. So these two realities do not lead up to a good sign for the husband being innocent. And of course, more information needs to be discovered. But it makes sense that he was abusive, he wasn't a good husband, he was volatile, violent, wanted to take away her independence, and then was curious about what would happen after her death. So, the signs are not good.
What does that tell you about this dynamic in the home when Holly explained that incident that happened? But Dr. Ludwig, I wanted to ask you about him taking her green card, taking her passport in this incident, and really not letting her use her phone in that situation. What does that say to you about the dynamics in this home?
Well, it sounds like she was held captive. And also, this woman, as intelligent as she was, probably was a bit naive and maybe thought she was, marrying a good guy who wanted to be a husband and a father. And what he turned out to be was something very different. And so abusive men like him can turn a household into a dangerous prison. And that's not even mentioning the emotional abuse that was probably going on. But this woman was imprisoned in her own home. And, it sounds like even if she did report it to certain people, there wasn't enough there to probably raise concerns where an intervention could be made. But it's just a very, very sad situation because this woman was being tortured prior to her death.
So there's another red flag here for people who are following the story, these family members who are concerned and friends. He did not initially call police to say she's missing. What happened was her coworkers said she's not showing up for work. This is strange. So there was a wellness check. And another piece of Naresh's story is what police were told by Naresh when they knocked on the door to do that wellness check on August 2nd. Now, prosecutors say he told police that he saw Mamta on July 31st, that she was visiting family in New York and Texas. They were separating, and it was not unusual for her to leave. The prosecutors also described a previous incident where Manassas Park police officers responded to the Bhatt's home. And the incident there occurred in February of 2024, where Mamta told officers that her husband broke her phone and refused to give her her green card and passport. So we talked about that one. But Holly, can you react to this wellness check? Because these were coworkers. Were you involved or in the calling of police or this discussion among coworkers about this being too strange?
Yeah, I was not involved with that. We worked together in a previous capacity. But I will say that what we did hear from the Commonwealth was that, Mamta had a new job. She was very excited for her new job as registered nurse. It was uncharacteristic, and I can attest to that. She really was devoted to her work. She didn't have call-out issues. So it was very concerning when she didn't show up to work. And to your point, when the police came to the wellness check on August 2nd, Mr. Bhatt made comments that she's visiting family in New York and Texas. The Commonwealth attorney has gone on to the record saying she doesn't have relatives in New York or Texas. She is the only person from her immediate family in the United States. So from that, Mr. Bhatt was already fabricating this trail of this mixed up timeline to not get police to really start taking a hard look at him.
Dr. Ludwig, please weigh in on that. We've got this wellness check, this husband that's saying, oh, there are these different places that she might be. Plus, we were separating, but it seems like not many other people knew about this separation.
Yeah, I see, we see the husband, he is lying, he is covering up, and there doesn't seem to be a concern, even if there is a separation. If a wife goes missing, there's some level of concern. Or if there's a wellness check, oh, let me call her, let me give you the number of where my wife is staying so that you can know that she's okay. Or I just heard from her. There's none of that. And there seems to be an emotional disconnect with this husband. It doesn't seem like his emotional regulation is right. It seems like he has no emotional empathy, and there's a coldness there. which of course is additionally disturbing. But nothing lands right, and his reaction is also upsetting.
Holly, you mentioned about the family and about her not having family in those locations that Naresh mentioned, but what do we know about her family? I know she still has family in Nepal.
She does. She has a very concerned family in Nepal. Her mother and brother have been really crying out, through social media. They did some interviews with Saatchi that you showed, really demanding answers. It's been reported that the mother really was urging Naresh Bhatt to report her missing. Mamta was very active on social media, very active in contact with her mother, calling overseas. We heard before work and after work, really to talk about what was happening with the one-year-old baby. So when her mother didn't hear from her, that was immediately a change from the pattern of communication from Mamta. So whenever her phone went silent, the family really wanted answers. And what we've heard is that, Naresh said, well, she's at work. She's at work. But now we know she wasn't at work.
Wow, Holly Worth, I'm so thankful that we've had you to share that side of this investigation. Having an advocate there in the courtroom for her, someone who is a friend, is really great. Thank you to both of our guests, Dr. Robbie Ludwig as well. Of course, our hearts and minds are with that one-year-old in this case. But we're going to talk so much more about it because we want to know what's next in this investigation. Let's take a look back at what we know.
Naresh reported on 5th of August after being pressured by Mamta's family and her cousin who lives in New York. He didn't report by himself.
One of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime obsession, 48 Hours on Court TV. Coming up next on Court TV.
Join me for a Court TV true crime series where we take you from the crime scene to the courtroom in America's most compelling cases.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. New season premieres September 8th.
Only on Court TV.
Naresh has been saying that their relationship is extraordinarily wonderful, nice. They even used to watch TV once a week together. They don't even argue. He likes Mamta to comment on him sometimes, but she's not even doing that. Whereas after her missing on August 4th, even before reporting, formally to the police, he says, no, we decided to separate with respect.
This is a case that has stretched from Nepal to the U.S., back to Nepal, and the big question remains, where is Mamta Bhatt? Let's take a look back at what we know about the timeline of the investigation into this young mother and nurse's disappearance. Now, on July 27th, Mamta is last seen at work. July 30th, her husband Naresh purchases 3 knives. August 1st, Mamta fails to show up for work. August 1st, he purchases cleaning products at Walmart. And on August 2nd, her coworkers are worried and they request a wellness check. Then on August 2nd, during that check, Naresh declines to report Mamta as missing. He tells police everything's fine, they're separating, and that it's not unusual for her to leave. He also mentions that she is visiting family in Texas and New York. Then, a few days later, August 5th, Naresh Bhatt contacts the authorities to report his wife missing. August 6th, detectives go to the home and they report that clothes, passport, and green card are missing. August 8th, police say that Mamta is involuntarily missing. Things are ramping up in the investigation. August 19th, husband Naresh sells his Tesla car, and on August 21st, police search his home. He is then arrested the next day, not charged with her death, but charged with concealing a disappearance. And that brings us to our last question tonight. What's next in the investigation into the disappearance of Mamta Bhatt? And here to discuss that is retired police commander and host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King, and private investigator Jason Jensen. Thank you both for being on with us. Mike King, let me start with you. What is standing out to you about this investigation? What's unique about it in the case of this missing mother?
Well, I think what we're seeing, Julia, is now the case is coming full circle. We're seeing that there were misrepresentations by the husband. We're seeing a timeline that starts to make a whole lot more sense. And then we're seeing collateral evidence come in, like you've reported on, with the knives being purchased, the cleaning supplies. So the real tedious work is starting now, in my opinion. That's completing all those witness interviews, cross-checking the stories against other forms of evidence, the forensic examinations, and so much more. And then you got to follow up with the lab results, and getting those back, even in a serious case, often takes longer than any of us can sometimes stand. And, you know, I kind of got this piece out of the luminol testing that was done, that there's some really interesting patterns of blood in the home, things to suggest that there was a large amount of blood pooling or this violent event that occurred, blood spatter and other things to suggest, including significant drag marks that really lead us to this idea of why law enforcement is focused on homicide and this endangered soul.
Jason, let's talk about what they're probably looking for, because we know, of course, they're going to be looking for Mamta, but we don't have murder charges in this case. What we have is concealing a death. What are police looking for outside of course, looking for Mamta herself?
Right. What they're looking for is any way to legally keep him in custody while they build up this murder case. So what they're hoping to do is, within this time while he's stuck in jail without bond, is that they do happen to have the right pieces of evidence trailing back to where they can find her remains, and then, you know, bring that back to something where they can file with the judge on a murder charge.
Mike, do you think that they are looking in certain places based on what his occupation is? We understand that he is someone who's in IT, but also has a background in being a contract worker, but also Army Reserve in his history. Any thoughts as to what may be in the minds of investigators?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got to go into the personality of the people that you're looking at as possible suspects or responsible parties for this. We also know that there's some phone forensics that places her phone near a body of water there in Loudoun County. They've got to consider the fact that they might need a specialty diver team to do some additional work in areas where they think, and again, pinging a phone in some of these rural areas is really difficult, and that's going to be tough to figure out where, but bringing cadaver dogs in to do searches. But the idea is, if there's this massive amount of trauma that occurred inside the home and the possibility that she could have been dissected, which is just a terrible thing to think about, they've got to look up multiple crime scenes. So we not only have the place where this thing occurs, the crime scene, the murder scene, but then we have disposal sites. And those disposal sites could be many when you're talking about a case like this. So it really boils down to digital forensics off the vehicle, off mobile devices, and then any CCTV footage they can pick up, or anything along the lines about his background and where he likes to go. Because sometimes these predators like to go back and visit and kind of vicariously roll in the dirt again when they go back and see a place.
And Jason Jensen, we know that the prosecution says he was at Walmart the day of her disappearance buying carpet cleaner, Clorox wipes, and tree-shaped air fresheners. What does that tell you about potentially what happened inside of that home?
Clearly, what that indicates to me is that he, had a violent act with her. Basically, she was killed there and most likely dismembered in the tub. And now he's got to go through the painstaking process of restoring the residence in a manner where it doesn't look like there was a violent crime.
Wow, it's chilling to think about, but at the same time, investigators have to go there in order to figure out what happened. Again, he's behind bars. He was denied bond, but we will continue to be following this story. Mike King and Jason Jensen, thank you so much for sharing your analysis with us. Have a good night. We are out of time. But I'm Julia Janae, filling in for Vinnie Politan. This is Vinnie Politan Investigates, as we looked into the case of Mamta Bhatt. If you know anything, let the investigators know in Virginia. We will keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.